What's up, fam bam? Welcome to another video, installment, episode of Metaphysics on Your Mind. Where we left off last video, we were talking about the 7 churches in Revelation 1 and Revelation 2, and we thought it would be probably a good idea if we went a little bit more in depth into these churches and how they are synonymous with chakras. Churches in the west, chakras in the east. So first, let's read a couple of verses. We're going to jump a little bit ahead in Revelation. First, we're going to do Revelation 7:4, and then Revelation 14:1 through 5. And again, we're talking about in Revelation, of course, the 7 seals and the 7 churches and the 7 spirits of God, and again, and the 7 days of the week as well. All of that being synonymous with the so-called chakra system. So let's grab Revelation 7:4. Okay. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Okay. So 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. So now let's jump up to Revelation 14:1 through 5, and then we'll kind of get into it. Okay, Revelation 14:1 through 5. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Sion. Okay, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. And they sung, as it were, a new song before the throne, and before the 4 beasts and the elders. And no man could learn that song but the 144,000, which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whichsoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God. All right, so let's take a look at this. So, you know, both of these verses speaking about the 144,000. So if basically, let's tie it all together. Okay, so 144,000. We're gonna kind of go into where that particular number comes into play, because remember we said that these writings are many of these writings are taken from the so-called East. Okay, and reconstituted, shall we say, by the writers of this book. So many of the ideas are what's called, you know, Eastern, or ideas, at least in the old days, of the Orient, as opposed to the so-called Occident. So let's get a little thing popping here. So seven chakras, which we have here, right? We said that, back, let's just draw a couple of circles to represent the chakras. Okay, and let's go. Chakras, or per revelation, churches. But we could also say seals and spirits and candlesticks. It's all referring to the same thing. The chakras, chakra really is a word from Sanskrit, okay? So in the subcontinent of India, Sanskrit is where this word comes from, and it basically just means like wheel or circle. And the chakras are essentially energy vortexes along your spinal column. Another way that they're referred to is as wheels of light, okay? And that they spin clockwise, at least if they're balanced. They spin clockwise at different rates, each chakra of the seven, right? So remember, we have, and again, we're paralleling the seven churches, which we know we went through in the last video, but we know these chakras as, the lowest chakra is the root, right? The root chakra. Then we have the sacral chakra. Then we have the solar plexus. Okay? Or navel chakra. Then we have the heart chakra. Then we have the throat. Then we have the third eye, which we've discussed when we talked about the light of the body is the eye. That's in the scriptures. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body will fill with light. Third eye, well, the third eye would be single, right? You have this pair, the physical eyes, and you have your spiritual eye, the third eye. And then the crown chakra, or the third eye chakra is also known as the brow, right? Because its position is roughly here, brow chakra, and then you have the crown chakra. As a matter of fact, for those who are doing their meditation, when you're able to get in deep enough, one of the things that I think is common to most, which we can say you would probably experience as you move forward in your practice, is when you're meditating, if you feel some pressure here, like that's basically the pineal gland in the third eye activating. So if you feel a little pressure in here, it's a good thing. You are moving the energy, okay? And the third eye chakra, is just before you get to the crown. So that's one thing or happening that it seems most will at least experience that in common, is that pressure right here. And when you feel that, you're getting somewhere, right? So here we have our seven chakras, or the seven churches, which they have their place names from Asia Minor, different locations in Asia Minor, which we said were symbols, an exoteric or outer symbol of an inner reality, right? So when you hear the word ascension, one way to look at ascension, because there's more than one, is ascending from the lower chakras, which would be root, sacral, and solar plexus, to the higher chakras, right? This is like going from lower consciousness to higher consciousness. But let's go through and kind of identify what the function of these different chakras are. So the root chakra, its main thing is about, it's like at the base, right? It's survival, issues like trust. Okay, that's the terrain of the root chakra, and if it's properly balanced, and healthy, then these aren't necessarily, they're not negative issues. But when the chakras are out of balance, in other words, let's just say if they're spinning counterclockwise as opposed to clockwise, which would indicate some kind of a blockage, these could be issues. So in other words, each of these energy centers, these vortexes, has, quote unquote, kind of an area of responsibility. And depending upon the health of, your system, shall we say, these traits can be either vices or virtues. In other words, they can be kind of a negative thing if they're not balanced and healthy, or they can be a positive thing. Okay? So let's go up to the sacral chakra, and that one is dealing with sex, creativity, okay? And that's a whole nother conversation about when we talk deeper about Kundalini and the cerebral spinal fluid, or the sacred oil. That's really at the crux of a lot of this. But again, we're just kind of doing a general, flyover. So, those who may not have as much familiarity with the chakra system, have an opportunity to kind of get on board. Okay. Sacral would also be like a feeling of abundance. How abundant you are could be reflected in the, in the health of your so-called sacral chakra. So that's second from the bottom. We know the root chakra's color is red. The sacral chakra is orange. Okay. And then the solar plexus is next. And so that one's going to be about power, vitality, willpower, and, well, not to digress, but willpower, wheel power, and again, many of these words are plays on other words right in front of us. So, solar plexus, okay? These three comprise the lower chakras. And what you want to do is we want to get up here, right? In fact, we want to actually take our crown, right? Because we're advised by the scriptures, see that no man taketh thy crown. That's your seventh chakra. That's the day of rest, right? The chakra of rest. Not an actual day, but in that day, in that time that you are able to, quote unquote, make the ascension to the day or chakra of rest, you will have claimed your crown. Okay. So next up, we have the heart chakra, and it's kind of obvious, and that one's dealing with love and acceptance. Love and acceptance for the heart chakra. The heart chakra, which is in the middle, is basically considered the gateway from the lower to the higher. You can't hang out up here without getting through the gateway. You can't hang out there, shall we say, positively without the conviction of the heart. So this is known as the gateway to the gods, would be another metaphor for it. So love and acceptance would be the heart chakra. And then as we move up into the higher chakras, we have the throat chakra, kind of makes sense. This is about expression, communication, right? Okay. The third eye chakra, intuition. Okay, is the, what I would say is, the main thing, but it's intuition, awareness. Throw awareness up there. Being present, awareness. Okay. We talked about the third eye, the pineal gland of the brain. That when that melatonin flows, when you're able to go take no thought, get deep into the activity, it's going to stimulate the pineal or pineal gland, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Melatonin is going to flow, which normally is associated with the sleep cycles. And well, again, if you meditate, you will get to a point where you feel that pressure in the third eye, and then you've activated. Okay, and then the crown chakra, of course, is, you could say, basically enlightenment. Enlightenment, spirituality, crown. Okay, so 7 churches, which have different names in the Bible, Ephesus, and we talked about it, Pergamos and Philadelphia and Sardis or whatever. They're given these place names. Here, it's where basically the plexus of the body of the spine is really what the physical aspect of these is. But this is your spiritual anatomy. That is what is proposed. That is essentially how these chakras function within us. In many ways determines what's called your spiritual anatomy. Okay, they can either be vices or virtues. In other words, you could have an abundance of these in a positive, shall we say, perception, and you can also have this in a negative, okay, where you might have trust issues, or where you might have, a mind that operates out of lack, survival. You've got to survive. I mean, you need these, but you don't want to operate. The idea is you don't want to stay solely in the lower, okay? You want these balanced, and you definitely need to go through the gateway to get up into the higher realms, the higher reaches, the higher mind, the higher consciousness. But often we get caught up in the material, in the physical, which is where these lower ones operate primarily, right? The physical, sex, survival, abundance. We want money, power over others. We want to manifest our will. Very physical, and it has its role, of course. But when you operate exclusively down here, well, the Bible actually, the scriptures actually refers to the lowest two. You'll know them as Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, Sodom and Gomorrah. So what it's saying is that when these are out of balance, okay, they can become a liability to you, to your spiritual progress. Okay. So the other aspect of this, which is interesting to connect, what we would say is east to west, is it's referred to in the Bible as 144,000. You say, well, where does that come from? Well, we already know that we said 144,000 or 144. Remember, in numerology, zeros drop off. 1 plus 4 plus 4 is 9. Consciousness, right? We're talking about consciousness. In fact, we're talking about divine consciousness when you're able to ascend from the physical, right? The flesh, into the enlightenment of the crown, right? The enlightened or the awakened one, which is what, Buddha means. It means the awakened one, okay? So, in this system, chakras, which comes from the yoga, actually, system, and tantra, is really, from the Sanskrit, that's the system that it comes from. And another term for the chakras is lotus, the lotus flower. We've all heard of the lotus flower. And the lotus, and each one is referred to as a lotus that has X number of petals to the flower, right? So the root chakra, or lotus, is said to have four petals, okay? Because we're starting from the bottom and we're moving up. The sacral chakra is said to have 6, which only makes sense as 6 sex, right? Yeah. Why wouldn't it be consistent? The solar plexus chakra has 10, said to have 10 petals. The lotus, I should say, not chakra. The heart lotus chakra is said to have 12 petals. The throat chakra, 16 petals, so that lotus flower. And the third eye chakra, or the brow chakra, as it's also called, with regard to the petals, the lotus petals, the third eye chakra, it's interesting. There's actually 2 different ways that you'll see the third eye in relation to these lotus petals. In some situations, you'll see that it says that the number of petals is 2. And then in others, it will say that the number of petals, which is what we're going to go with, and we'll explain why, is 96. Okay? And the reason why it's kind of either or is that the 2-petal version, shall we say, is actually synonymous with what the Bible calls the 2 witnesses. And the 2 witnesses, which we'll go into, I think we mentioned it before, that we're proposing the 2 witnesses in your brain are the pituitary gland and the pineal gland, 2 master glands. That they are actually, in effect, the 2 witnesses that are referred to in the Bible. And as such, the third eye, because remember, the third eye is usually, in between. The third eye represents, these 2 petals, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of the brain. And within each one of those petals are 48 petals. So in other words, it's 48 plus 48, which equals 96. So you'll see it both ways, but that's the connection. is that each one of these, when it's 2, represents 48. 48 and 48. And we end up with 96. And then the 7th, or crown chakra, let's rewrite that down here. So we're ascending up the physical plexus points of the spine, and the chakra, or the spiritual anatomy. Let's do crown. And we said that the crown is in here, was enlightenment, right? Spirituality, enlightenment. Okay. The crown is said to have 1,000 petals. Okay. So you can see as we've ascended from 4 to 6 to 10 and so on. Okay. The petals have increased as we've moved up the chakras, up the churches, up to 7 golden candlesticks, up to 7 spirits of God, covering these different aspects of ourselves. This is their domain of influence in our lives. And with regard to the 144,000, where we get, here this is from the East, right? Chakras, Sanskrit, Kundalini, what have you. But where the 144,000 that's in the Bible, 4 and 6 is 10, 10 and 10 is 20, 20 and 12 is 32, 32 and 16 is 48, 48 and 96 is 144, and 1,000. So that's the way that the numerology, or the symbolic writing is done. So these lower 6, remember the 6 days shalt thou labor, as you're ascending, in meditation. The work is that you're watching, you're taking no thought, you're watching, we know you're wrestling kind of like with your ego. 6 days shalt thou labor. So as you move up, you hit that third eye chakra, the 6th chakra, that intuition, okay, the intuitive kicks in, left hemisphere, right hemisphere, okay, the 48 and the 48, okay, and then the crown chakra is what? The chakra of rest, the day of rest, Noah's point of rest on Mount Ararat, right? And what did Mount Ararat mean? We said it. Reversal, or the curse reversed. The ancestral curses, the generational curses, that when you go and have a day of rest, doesn't mean an actual day, okay? It's talking about that 7th or crown chakra where you are at rest. You are in connection with the divine. You have adopted the Christ mind, the Buddha mind, the Krishna mind. You are now in communion with the divine when you're at rest. And when all these chakras are in balance, when they're in balance, they have a clockwise spin, and out of balance, it can be a counterclockwise. So when they're all balanced, because they all need to be, you need all your chakras, right? It's just that we know the lower chakras, if you operate mostly out of those, it's kind of like a lower vibration. It's a very physical, material, you see what it's concerned with, right? The physical world, power, will, sex, survival, okay? You need this. In fact, you're rooted in the root chakra of you as a person needing to or wanting to survive, right? But as you move up, and we'll go into the cerebrospinal fluid being returned up to the skull. As you move up, you have to get through the gateway. What's the gateway? The heart chakra. Okay? The heart chakra, love and acceptance. If you want to polarize these things in the most healthy way, you must pass through the heart chakra. That's the middle. You have 3 lower, the heart's in the middle, in the center, and you have the 3 higher. Okay, the throat, third eye, and crown. Okay, why is the heart the gateway? You've heard the old saying. It's not actually a verse in the Bible, but it's used a lot in churches, maybe in reference to another verse. But you've heard the verse, "The lion shall lay down with the lamb." Well, that comes from the zodiac. So in other words, what organ does the lion or Leo represent? The heart. What organ does the ram or lamb represent? The head. The head and the heart to lie down together means that they are of one accord. When your heart and your head are able to meet in peace in one accord, that is synonymous with the lion, supposedly a, carnivorous predator, and the little lamb. See, the lion lays down with the lamb. When the head and the heart are like this, amazing things can happen for us. So anyway, I'm not going to go too much more into this right now, but that's the idea. Is these are the areas, okay, that are heavily influenced by these respective chakras or churches or seals. And we know this has to be the case, that it's about ascending and descending, because even if, for those who go to church, when they talk about, so such and such is a backslider, why would that word mean anything unless you're talking about falling down the chakras that line the spine, your back? In other words, when you go from the higher and you start operating out of the lower, you've backslid. You slid down your backside, right? Oh, how far thou art fallen, okay? All of it works together, and it all works together on different layers. But anyway, this is for healing. For those of us who have endured, whether it be generational curses that we inherited, emotional traumas that we've experienced, other dislocations of our psyche, we propose, if you can sit within yourself, okay, and if you can quiet the mind, meaning if you can take no thought and watch on a regular basis, and we'll go more into how the cerebral spinal fluid and where it comes from. We're going to get a lot deeper into that, but this is just kind of an outline that we're saying, hey, by ascending, by having your chakras in a healthy alignment, you can purge and cleanse a buildup of again, dysfunction and trauma, okay? But it's done from within, and you can't control it. You must surrender and have it be done to you in divine timing. Anyway, that's it for this particular installment. But for those of you out there that are digging some of this stuff, we really appreciate you taking time to check it out. We understand, it's not maybe the most traditional way of looking at this, but as an alternative, if it speaks to you on some level, then it's all good, right? One way or the other. You don't have to accept everything whole cloth. In life, what we do, we cherry pick and we take what we can assemble that makes sense to us, right? Anyway, once again, thank you.